Hey everyone, it's Rick, and thanks for joining me on another Inwyt Walkabout. I'm back in the US after a lovely week in the UK. We had a nice heat wave, which was very unusual in England last week, and it's a little bit cooler here, which is nice. Beautiful summer day in the Northeast. Give you a little view of some of the close-up flowers that I'm kind of walking past on my walk today. I wanted to share a little reflection from my experience last week, where in the middle of the week I had an opportunity to really get off the grid, I would say, and spend a couple of days in what I would say is relative IT electronic isolation just southwest of London, in the countryside in an area called Brockwood, which really was a beautiful area that was a combination of, I'd say, different types of grain fields, farmland, forests, hedges, beautiful walks, and really no consistent availability of Wi-Fi or even phone. So in many respects, it was very isolating from what I would say is our usual dependencies when we're in free mode, having free time. And it was an interesting opportunity. We don't often get that, and I'll say for starters that there's always that feeling of, probably the best way to describe it is withdrawal, where you're in an environment that you sort of acutely recognize your dependence and natural inclination to pick up your phone and either look for email or go on social media, at the very least get some texts from friends, family, and so forth, and all of a sudden that's not available, and you kind of get into a situation where you're almost in limbo and lost, saying, well, what am I going to do? And I think what's interesting in these couple of days where I was in that situation was how quickly the absence of our usual distractions, if you will, occupations or preoccupations, resulted in a much more keen sense of awareness of surroundings, and where all of a sudden things that we would either assume as being boring or really having nothing of interest going on, and for which there's sort of a tendency to feel stir crazy, actually manifests in a totally new way, where you start to see the interconnections and incredible activity that really is going on around us, moment by moment every day, that we just essentially have blocked out because we're too busy with our own activities and things that we deem important. And so, as a couple of examples, I'm always kind of pulled to things that fly. I was watching some butterflies as they were bouncing around in what seemed to be sort of that random pattern of flight where, it always seems like they never have really any idea where they're going. They're just kind of bouncing around, and somehow they land where they're supposed to. And then you start to realize that, there's some rationale for that erratic flight, and that really it's not a demonstration of chaos as much as it is defense mechanism, and for which I watched a couple of butterflies that were presumably in a mating form, chasing each other and really flying around quickly and really close to each other in what I would say is very crazy patterns and not losing each other, and for which you all of a sudden start to recognize that they're really quite coordinated when they need to be. The other thing that was amusing to me was the observation of pigeons in this area. I had always assumed that pigeons were pretty much a domesticated bird, in the sense that we're always told they're completely dependent on human environment and human activity, thus their prevalence in cities and the nuisance that everybody seems to think they cause. And here we were in the countryside where the number of pigeons in that area, for whatever reason, was very numerous. And for which, I was always trying to figure out, are these feral pigeons that somehow got misplaced from the city, or is this actually a natural habitat? And it was, again, interesting to watch these birds fly in what I would say is an atypical way, because I didn't really pay attention in cities to pigeons. But they would, on a regular basis, sort of flap their wings furiously in, what I would say is a rapid ascent, trying to just get altitude. And then essentially, when they've almost hit the top of, the elevation that they're trying to get to, they just stop flapping their wings and they just glide. And they glide into a free fall, really a dive bomb, before they pick up again and continue flapping the way one would typically associate pigeons flying. So, in both scenarios, these are settings where normally those things would just not be visible. And there really, I think, started to emerge for me an appreciation for the connections that everything around us have, and the synergies that they present and provide for each other, such that in their unique activities, they're all connected and they all have relationship with each other. And I think, for me, maybe the point to make here, a couple, is one, to recognize how unaware and how disconnected we are from our surroundings, from our natural surroundings, in that our focus and emphasis on our own daily activities, which are pretty much knowledge-based and very narrow in many ways, are completely disconnected in a lot of ways to what's going on around us, in the sense that we have no awareness of the relationships that we have with the things that surround us. And, I think the other thing that struck me was how, in our pursuit of knowledge and understanding, and for the technologies that we have created and advances that we would say we've made in society, how minuscule our understanding of life is relative to everything that's going on around us. And I again was kind of struck by the elegance and the complexity of even a butterfly, and how certainly at our level of understanding and knowledge, we would have absolutely no way to even come close to replicating or even understanding the mechanism by which, a butterfly, a small insect, actually maneuvers and engages in its environment. So, for me, I think the takeaways, the points that I would make are just those, is that for all the importance that we place in our lives, we really are oblivious in many ways to the incredible nature and the incredible life that is around us in the planet. and we're just kind of walking through it or living through it without an appreciation for the connection and really the relationship that we have to it. I think we always kind of feel like we're separate to it, or it's a resource to us to take advantage of. And I think for the misuse or the use of nature that we so frequently put into play, we really have very limited appreciation and understanding for the connectivity that we have despite our isolation. And we see that with climate changes and just in general, the activities that humans engage in are incorporated and impact our surroundings clearly. And we're really not paying attention to what I would say is really the unique and incredible opportunity that we have to really look at that in a more dynamic and engaging way, as opposed to one where we're just trying to take advantage. So I would encourage you, if you have a moment, to find those opportunities where you can take a day, or you can take a couple of hours off the grid, turn your phone off, really dissociate yourself from the things that make us comfortable, and watch the discomfort that emerges initially, and just watch what happens if you watch that and move beyond it. Not intentionally, but just let yourself see if you can move beyond it just by watching it. And then really start to appreciate how life around us and all of the different interfaces and all of the different connections and all of the different plants and everything that really surrounds our everyday life and that we're really a part of actually is in high activity mode all the time, and where we really are not connected. And perhaps there's an opportunity where we can actually start to see the value and really the incredible opportunity that there is to reestablish relationship and really to appreciate the role that we play in the planet as a whole. So that's it for today. I'm going to leave you with a view here of the side of where I'm walking in my neighborhood again, and just kind of zoom in a little bit here on what we would typically call a weed, and just observe how intricate this weed is and how there's activity going on around it and how it connects to everything else, and see if you can not just walk by and accept it as background. I hope you have a great day, a wonderful week, and I look forward to next time. This is Rick with Inwyt Walkabout. Take care.